Zealand Classic Festival 2017. I'm joined by what I would say is a legend of our sport, Mr. Ken McIntosh. You're laughing, Ken, but these things are beautiful and handmade by yourself.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I never thought, at the age of, 62 now, that I'd be building the same bikes as I was building when I was 25. And it's gone full circle. They were out and out, top level race bikes in the day, and now they've become classic bikes, so that's a good thing, I think. But we built 50 of them in the day, and we've built another 7 of them since in the last few years, and potentially might build a few more. And the people who own them invariably have dreamed of owning one in the day when they were kids and didn't have any money, and as they've got older and paid for the house and kids are growing up, there's the opportunity to buy something they'd always dreamed of, and they don't take much persuading.
Hey, I was talking to Dennis before, and he said it's given him a kind of a whole new appreciation, and Cam the same, for what it was like in the day and the era to ride these bikes. And we can only imagine here, Pukekohe's quite a bumpy circuit, so it kind of maybe reflects the street races that there were back in the day, but these really were men's motorcycles. They were monsters on the street in the day. It's so cool to see them circulating here. And Cam was saying, and Dennis as well before, the bikes handle so well they couldn't get over how well they handled, considering they were built in a garage in New Zealand, taking on the best the Japanese had to offer on the world scene. You must be pretty proud of that.
Well, I am very proud of it, and the thing was, it was a period in sort of motorbike history where the engine performance just took off, and TZ350 Yamaha, 60 horsepower engine, and the frames of that period would handle that. And then TZ750s and the big Kawasaki's and then the big Suzuki motors came along, and 100 horsepower was nothing. We always used to claim in the day that these engines on the spec sheet that Roger used to put beside the bike, he'd say it had 150 horsepower, and I always thought that was a bit dreamy. But the same spec engine as he had, it's both of these bikes, a dyno up at 160 rear wheel horsepower, consistent. We've built 3 engines, they're all 160 horse, and the guys riding them say, yeah, it's for real, it's for real. So it wasn't an exaggeration at all. So to go from 60 horsepower to 160 horsepower, the technology was there. But the thing that is particularly interesting is that the bikes of the day that the Japs built, they hadn't actually invented the triangle, and they must have never looked at car chassis design, which before they went to monocoques, all the tube frames, the advance was to going from curved tubes to straight triangles like Lotus and cars like that. So when I came into it, I'd had a little bit of education in engineering, and that was one of the fundamental things. You learn about the stiffness of structures and the effects of triangulation. So as soon as I started to build the thing, it was to get us all the triangles to work, and that was the object was to make the chassis as stiff as possible. We actually tested one of these chassis against a Honda CB750 cop bike that had seriously injured the rider. The traffic cop had fallen off it, and they complained that it went into speed wobbles. So we went to the DSIR laboratories and bolted down one of these bikes and the Honda, and we were quite surprised. We knew it was a bit stiffer, but it was 3 times stiffer in torsion than the Honda, and the Honda was typical of the frames of that day, double cradle frame. So the degree of stiffness is it is real. It's not just an illusion. So what's happened is, as the tyres have got better and better, those old bikes, if you put the sticky tyres in them, they really tie themselves in knots, and they end up almost at the point they're unrideable because they wobble, and the wheels are just going in and out of line. I can visualise it perfectly in my mind, whereas this chassis is still stiff enough with these tyres. And Dennis Charlotte's comment was, he says, you put another 20 horsepower through that, he says it's not going to do anything wrong. Whereas, if you had a Katana frame of the same period, you'd probably find that it was, you'd have to really, really do some serious bracing and things to just get it to be, viable.
Hey, just quickly before we go, I hear there's a bit of an interesting story about how Cam come to first get on a McIntosh.
Yeah, I went to Australia to Phillip Island a few years ago for the Classic Championships, and I took Andrew Stroud over, and he rode my Manx Norton and did really well. But anyhow, Cameron was there, and he was riding one of my customers' Manxes that I built, and that bike was an absolutely original one. It was the nearest thing you could get to buy, to getting one out of the factory in 1963. Had all this, the skinny tyres and the low-level exhaust, all the things that, were on the original ones that get changed to sort of hot them up. Anyhow, Cameron was riding the wheels off this thing, and I got introduced to him. And when I saw how hard he was trying and how good he was, and what a nice guy he was, I said to him, "Do you want to come over to New Zealand and ride my Manx?" So he did that. Came and rode, won all the races, did really well. Anyhow, when he came into my workshop, he saw the McIntosh Suzuki that won Bathurst in '82 was sitting there, and there was other ones there as well, and including the silver bike. And he asked me, he said, "What are these?" Because he's too young, 1982 is about when he was born, I suppose. I'm not quite sure, but anyhow, he was certainly too young to know too much about that history. So I explained to him, how we'd gone to Bathurst and built the bikes. And he looked at the silver bike and he said, "Well, if you want anybody to ride that, I'll ride it for you."